We want you to bring that here, all right? Go out there and press him and choke him out.
What's going on, Jets fans? It's your boy DT back with another live stream. A ton of roster news to break down today. Yesterday, we got down to the initial 53-man roster. We've already seen some shakeup, some additions, some subtractions, people being brought back to the practice squad. A lot to get into tonight. I didn't give my initial thoughts last night because the initial 53 was released at about 8 p.m. The deadline was 4 p.m. for the league to get the 53-man, but Aaron Glenn had different plans. He did not care about our fandom or anybody going live, refreshing their Twitter timelines yesterday for hours on end. The roster came out at 8 p.m. last night. Not a ton of surprises and already some moves made after that. So we'll get into all of that and more. But first, I do want to announce this is the second live stream with membership and super chat capabilities built in. We've hit that first threshold of monetization. So I genuinely appreciate every single person who's tuned in over the last 100 days to my channel. And we have to shout out the newest member of the A1 since day one, and that is David D, our resident Detroit Lions fan in the chat. So thank you so much, David, for becoming a member of the A1 day ones. Hopefully my stream doesn't crash as I try to pull up YouTube, but I will be gifting some memberships as well to get the ball rolling. But we do have super chat capabilities as well. You know how that works. Everybody else's stream, they cut the line. They will do the same here. I have a hard time keeping up with all you guys in the chat, so super chats will definitely help keep me organized as well. I'm going to throw up a graphic real quick on the screen. It is my Jets 90-man roster in spreadsheet form. I understand if it's hard for people to see if they're using their phone or they're not on a computer or television. So I will still talk through it as I do every single time. And we will go position by position, talk about any surprises, where I thought we were going to go a different path, and I might have been wrong about my initial 53. So without further ado, we'll start. First, I want to shout out a couple people in the chat. Alan was here a couple hours ago, but he still might be here now. David D, appreciate you. Lane Kerner in the chat, shout out to you. Mike D's Nuts, appreciate you tuning in. And Luppy, I'm still crying, Dylan. Yeah, Lupp, that was a good one. I'm not a meatball, so if you guys didn't catch Jake's stream, we had a hell of a time there for the last 2 hours. So glad to see a lot of you guys over here on my stream tonight. First, we'll go right into the quarterback position. Again, if you can't see it on the screen, that's okay. I'll talk through it. I have 2 quarterbacks on the 53, 1 on the practice squad. None of these guys seem like they were surprises, obviously. I think there was a mini civil war between Jets fans, whether they wanted to keep Adrian Martinez or Brady Cook. Ultimately, the team decided that they saw enough out of Brady Cook in his rookie campaign throughout the preseason to bring him back on the practice squad. So Brady Cook is the practice squad quarterback. They could still add Adrian Martinez, but I don't think they will. And then you obviously have Justin Fields and Tyrod Taylor as your active quarterbacks. Now, it gets a little hairy because Tyrod Taylor still isn't practicing with that knee injury. He needed a knee scope a couple weeks ago, right? A minor arthroscopic knee scope. So that's definitely not encouraging news. And you may have to go to your third quarterback maybe a little bit before you anticipated. And honestly, if it comes down to it, if for some reason Fields isn't good or he's hurt or, Tyrod Taylor is not healthy enough to be the backup week 1, I genuinely think the team is still going to go try to add a veteran with some NFL experience as a quarterback 3, even in an emergency capacity. I don't think they want to be one hit away from Brady Cook having to play meaningful NFL snaps. So it's definitely one to keep an eye on there. I'm not rushing. Like, I wasn't an advocate of signing Tommy DeVito. It looked like the Jets were pretty in on DeVito. Obviously, he ends up going to New England, where it looks like he may be the quarterback 2 behind Drake May, which is just incredible. I mean, for him to get all the way up to quarterback 2 without even being on the team before is a good thing for him, obviously. But that wasn't the opportunity here. So he passes up the Jets potentially for the New England Patriots, but I still think they're going to go get a veteran instead of having to roll with Brady Cook as their backup. Moving on to the running back / fullback position, they decided that they're going to keep 5 total running backs. Breece Hall, Braylon Allen, Isaiah Davis, those are the obvious ones. Kene Nwangu, I felt like he had a much better preseason. Donovan Edwards, yes, he had a very good game against the Packers, right? He would have went for 120, 130 yards to if that holding penalty wasn't called back. So I was definitely intrigued by Donovan Edwards at first, but I felt like the consistency of Kene Nwangu was definitely he was just a better runner, to be completely honest. Outside of that Packers game, I felt like Nwangu took over as running back 4 over Edwards. Plus, he gives you the special teams upside that Edwards certainly does not. So I felt like this was pretty chalk at the running back position. And then they obviously keep fullback / tight end / utility player in Andrew Beck. So I can't say that I'm terribly surprised by the number of running backs they kept or by the names of running backs they kept. I think the Commanders were the ones that scooped up Donovan Edwards. So, good for them. They just traded Brian Robinson Jr. to the San Francisco 49ers. So they had an opening. And again, it all comes down to opportunity. We would have loved to have everybody back on the practice squad, but if they get an opportunity to, be elevated on somebody else's depth chart, I feel like they're going to take that opportunity more often than not. So happy to see Donovan Edwards get an opportunity, but equally excited to see Kene Nwangu get the call up with his special teams upside. Before I get into any more positions, I did want to, shout out myself. I gifted 5 memberships in the chat. I want to get the ball rolling on the memberships. So I am going to gift 5, and the 5 recipients, we already have a problem. Alan Avital got the first membership gifted by me. So Alan, thank you. You're a member now. Georgie, you chump. You're a member. You are an A1 since day one. Luppy, my guy, you are also an A1 since day one. Jersey Jet, I wish we would have got the chance to speak on Jake's call earlier, but your connection was a little bad. You are also a member of the A1 since day one. And Mr. Flowers, you received the 5th and final gift membership from yours truly today. So thank you all for, being here, becoming obviously a member, not by choice. I forced it on you, but there will be member videos only coming out soon. So I appreciate everybody for tuning in, and you guys truly deserve it. Even Alan, who I like to give a lot of shit to. So thank you guys for being here, and hopefully that will get the ball rolling with the memberships and super chats. Back to the 53. We are at the wide receiver position. The Jets initially kept 6 wide receivers: Garrett Wilson, Josh Reynolds, Tyler Johnson, Arian Smith, Alan Lazard, and Xavier Gibson. And then today they made a change. They added a tight end who we'll talk about shortly, and they put Tyler Johnson down to the practice squad. So they went a little bit heavier with their tight end personnel and a little bit lighter with their wide receiver personnel. It's not a surprise to me, right? They want to go heavy. They want to play bully ball, less wide receivers, more tight ends will get that done. So Tyler Johnson was cut today, but immediately brought back to the practice squad. So right now we are currently sitting at 5 wide receivers. The tight end position, that's where one of the 3 additions of the day came in. We added Jelani Woods off waiver claims from the Indianapolis Colts. He was a rookie 3rd-round pick in 2022, had just over 300 receiving yards and 3 touchdowns in his rookie season. Unfortunately, he missed all of 2023 and 2024 with different injuries. So certainly not, the best trait is having a guy with 2 years of missed experience in his first 3 years in the league. But I do think from a skill set perspective, Jelani Woods gives you something that perhaps Jeremy Ruckert wasn't, right? He's going to give you at least some effort in the block game, and he's going to be a much better pass catcher than Jeremy Ruckert. So Jelani Woods enters the fold at tight end. They currently have 4 on the 53-man roster. Jeremy Ruckert, Mason Taylor, Stone Smart, and Jelani Woods. To me, this points to the Jets wanting to play more heavy personnel, but still be able to do the same things, right? You've increased your versatility of your offensive skill position players, but you've also decreased, in a positive way, the predictability of your play calling and your abilities. You can now have a 13 personnel heavy set look, and you can still pass out of it if you got guys like Stone Smart, Mason Taylor, and Jelani Woods as your 3 tight ends. So I definitely think that they've gone up in versatility. They went down in predictability. And I really think that this move, adding a Jelani Woods type player, many people thought the writing would be on the wall for for Jeremy Ruckert, but it looks like they want to go heavier and they don't want to keep a extra wide receiver. So they go 5 wide receivers, 4 tight ends, and 5 total running backs. So not the exact split that many people thought it would be. A lot of people had, maybe 6 wide receivers making the 53. They go 5, but originally it was 6 with Tyler Johnson. Alan in the chat, a member of this community, an A1 since day one, reminds us that Brandon Smith was returned to the practice squad. Yes, Brandon Smith, Jamal Pritchett, and Quentin Skinner, all 3 wide receivers that we debated about heavily over the last couple of weeks, all revert back to the practice squad. So the Jets are able to keep the veteran experience in Xavier Gipson and Allen Lazard, even if we disagree with it, but they're also able to bring back all of the upside younger wide receivers to the roster. So I'm happy with the roster management so far with Muji and Glenn, specifically around the tight end and wide receiver positions specifically. Moving on to the offensive linemen, the Jets decided that they were going to keep 10 offensive linemen, and they've already made a switch. The original 10 were Fashanu, Simpson, Tippmann, Vera Tucker, Membu. Those are your clear-cut starters. And it was Max Mitchell, Xavier Newman, Josh Myers, Marquise Hayes, and Chuks Okorafor as your backup 5. The Jets, however, claimed Essa Poole from the Kansas City Chiefs, a offensive tackle, rookie offensive tackle, and they cut Marquise Hayes to make room for Essa Poole. So they're still carrying 10 offensive linemen. That definitely, again, speaks to the identity of this team. They want to run the ball. They want to bully people up front at the line of scrimmage. But Essa Poole gives you more tackle experience, whereas Marquise Hayes could have been a tackle/guard. So in my opinion, this would probably lead for Max Mitchell to be your universal backup who can play left tackle, guard, maybe even right tackle. And then Essa Poole is going to give you more strict tackle responsibilities where he can come in and be your third tackle up if 2 injuries were to happen. So Essa Poole is in and Marquise Hayes is out on the offensive line. 2 players that made it to the practice squad, Leander Wiegand, the German who counts as the international pathway exemption, so we'll carry 17 on our practice squad instead of 16. He makes it back. And Cole Laval, who I had in my personal prediction over Marquise Hayes, I had Hayes going to the practice squad and Cole Laval going to the 53. So they flip that. Laval comes back to the practice squad with Wiegand. So they technically have 12 offensive linemen currently in-house between the 53 and the practice squad. Before we flip over to defense, I'm going to just pop into the chat real quick and see what you guys are talking about because I don't want to get lost and be all over the place in about 45 minutes. Alan says we have 4 on the practice squad. I assume you're talking about wide receivers because Tyler Johnson now makes the 4th wide receiver on the practice squad. And I think they'll call up Tyler Johnson sooner rather than later, in my opinion. I think that Tyler Johnson obviously being cut today leads to show you that the coaching staff felt good enough about him to a degree. And in 11 personnel throughout the preseason, when Allen Lazard was hurt, Tyler Johnson was the guy stepping up into the fold. So I'm happy that they keep 4 wide receivers on the practice squad to kind of counteract the 5 active roster wide receivers. So it definitely just gives you a ton of extra versatility out there. And Tyler Johnson was a great blocker. So I wouldn't be surprised if they call him up for the game day. I guess it's game day 48. You're allowed some call ups from the practice squad. So I wouldn't be surprised if Tyler Johnson is called up to the game day roster sooner rather than later. I see a couple super chats. Our guy Big Country 87 in the chat, $2. I appreciate you. You're doing a great job. You are super knowledgeable. Thank you, Big Country. I greatly appreciate that. Wow, and he follows up with another $2 super chat. Thank you again. Do you see us picking up another quarterback? I think if anything, they're going to bring back Martinez to the practice squad as well. But I wouldn't be surprised if they were flirting around with a quarterback with more proven NFL experience just to try to hold into the roster until they have more confirmation about Tyrod Taylor. So there are a couple, guys who have been around the league for a couple years, maybe not without the starting experience as a Tommy DeVito, but there are a couple guys out there that I'm kind of blanking on name-wise right now. But I do think that if it came down to it, they're not going to put Brady Cook out onto the field. They're going to sign a street veteran free agent. Maybe, CJ Beathard, Nathan Peterman, those guys were worked out. I would choose Beathard over Peterman 10 times out of 10. But if they choose to go that route, I still think they would do that before a Brady Cook type of, elevation to playing meaningful snaps for this team. But also, if we're down to it, man, we know we're screwed if we have to go down to the third quarterback anyway. So it's a bit of a situation where do you put a lot of stock into quarterback 3, or do you just hope that your top 2 guys pan out and you go and handle that situation when it arises? But I appreciate the super chats nonetheless. Big Country, thank you so much. I appreciate that greatly. All right. Oh, somebody mentioned Tyler Huntley in the chat, but yeah, he signed back to Baltimore's practice squad. So it's not looking like we will get him, because if you want somebody off another team's practice squad, you have to put them on your active roster. So I don't see the Jets doing that with Tyler Huntley specifically. David D, an A1 since day one in the chat. He says Dylan Martinez is reportedly signing with the 49ers practice squad. Yeah, that would make sense, right? Saleh is there, a coach that got to see him up close in person last year. So, good for Martinez. I was more of a Brady Cook guy than an Adrian Martinez guy. I feel like if you want the improv quarterback who's going to run around and throw off his back foot, sure, Martinez is probably your guy. But if you want a guy who's going to play within the timing of the offense, use a little bit more anticipation in his throws, can probably make more layered throws to the second and third level of the field, Brady Cook has certainly ascended throughout the spring and summer to become worthy of this practice squad spot over Adrian Martinez. So happy for Martinez going to the 49ers, but I was more of a Brady Cook guy myself. With that, we'll flip over to the defensive side of the ball. Defensive line, they also keep 10 defensive linemen total. 5 edge rushers, Will McDonald, Jermaine Johnson, Michael Clemens, rookie Tyler Barron, and Braden McGregor round out your 5 edge rushers. Personally, I think Braden McGregor is on, roster watch. If they sign a veteran, whether it's Zadarius Smith, Jadeveon Clowney, I think Braden McGregor is the first to go. Although I would like to see Tyler Barron probably be the first to go and brought back to the practice squad. However, we know how coaches feel about their first year worth of draft picks, right? We saw Joe Douglas hold on to every single draft pick as long as he could. I don't think this regime is going to do that, but I also think that Tyler Barron is probably not worth a 53-man roster spot currently, and he could be expendable if they bring in a veteran. So I would be watching for McGregor or Barron if a veteran is added. And then on the inside of the defensive line, we have Quinnen Williams, newcomer Harrison Phillips, Jay Tufele, another newcomer in Jawan Briggs, and Leonard Taylor III. Those are your 5 defensive interior players. Byron Cowart was put on the season-ending IR. I thought it was the IR with designated to return, and he was only going to miss 4 games. Unfortunately, it looks like we will not see Cowart in a Jets uniform in the regular season this year, which allowed a guy like Leonard Taylor III, who does have pass rushing upside, the ability to make the roster for the Jets. And I'm actually happy about Leonard Taylor III. I was excited to see what Cowart could do. He was being talked up as the guy next to Quinnen Williams all of training camp. But I also think that Leonard Taylor III is very deserved of getting a spot on this 53. I did a film breakdown of Leonard Taylor III earlier on in the summer. It's honestly one of my most successful videos on YouTube so far. And I loved everything I saw from him, right? Obviously, there's some growing pains when you're a UDFA rookie. And then, entering your second year, you're still going to have some lumps. But I definitely think that Leonard Taylor III is deserved of being on the 53, and he would have been picked up by another team had he been cut. I think he shows enough flash in the pass rush game. Sure, he's probably a work in progress against the run, but that's why you go and add guys like Jawan Briggs from Cleveland or Harrison Phillips from the Minnesota Vikings. I think you have a good balance now with your 5. Quinnen Williams can do both at a higher level, right? He's a very, very good to elite pass rusher, and he's a very good run stuffer, even if last year didn't come to fruition for him. Then you have Phillips and Briggs, who are your true run stuffers, right? They're going to eat up double teams. They're going to get off their blocks. They're going to maintain gap integrity, and they're going to get after the ball carrier. And then you have Jay Tufele and Leonard Taylor, who are Malik Willis's biggest nightmare, especially when he's backed up in his own end zone, resulting in a strip sack and immediate touchdown for Jay Tufele. But Leonard Taylor and Jay give you the pass rush upside in the room. So they have a good blend of run and pass defenders in the interior of the defensive line. The injuries or practice squad guys on the defensive line are Peyton Page and Eric Watts are your 2 practice squad defensive linemen, so they keep one of each. And then your injured guys are Byron Cowart, who I just mentioned, and Rashad Weaver, who from, all reports in camp had looked really good. Most of that was looking good when the pads weren't on yet for the defensive linemen, and they're going to always win those matchups versus offensive linemen without pads. But Rashad Weaver was somebody who was being talked up highly throughout the training camp process. And it's a bummer that he's out for the season, but I still thought even if he was on and McGregor was off, you would still need a veteran presence in the edge room. So 2 practice squad defensive linemen, 2 injury list defensive linemen, 10 total kept on the active 53. Moving back to the linebackers, the second level of the defense, we have the obvious names, Quincy Williams and Jamian Sherwood. We have Kiko Maligoa, the rookie from Miami. We have Marcelino McCrary-Ball, and we had Zaire Barnes. Those were the 5 that made the roster initially. Then today, the third move they made was bringing in Cam Jones from the Kansas City Chiefs, a former Indiana Hoosier linebacker. He was lining up mostly as a will linebacker during the preseason, and he gave a ton of special teams upside based on what I was reading and watching a little bit of film on him earlier this afternoon. But I thought Marcelino McCreary-Ball would be the guy to be cut to make room for Cam Jones. They had different plans. Zaire Barnes, he is the one who was cut. I don't think he was reverted back to the practice squad like Tyler Johnson was. So we'll see what happens with Zaire Barnes. But unfortunately, it just didn't seem like it was ever going to work with Zaire. He had that one good tackle against the Eagles this preseason, a big scoop slam tackle for loss against the running back. But I felt like it was always just a little too little too late with Zaire Barnes. And he was, he had the eye of Robert Saleh and Joe Douglas as a former draft pick of theirs. But I felt like the writing was on the wall, and maybe I thought McCreary-Ball was going to be the guy cut. They end up picking him over Zaire Barnes. So I'm not going to nitpick too much. I didn't love the depth of the linebacker position to begin with, outside of the top two guys. Malagoa is somebody that I'm just going to disagree with the coaching staff until I see it. He is also one of the only, larger linebackers on this team, right? Obviously, Quincy and Jamie and Sherwood, they're faster. They're more sideline to sideline. I think Kiko is more of like, I'm going to hit the hole, fill my gap, and meet the running back in the hole and make a big pop. So we didn't see it come to fruition with Kiko, but it's not the same situation as Barron for me, where I feel like I don't know, man. Kiko Maligoa could be decent in this league. I don't have that feeling yet about Tyler Barron. So the Jets ultimately keep 5 linebackers, and then they make a swap today. So they're still at 5, but Barnes is swapped for Cam Jones, the newcomer. Moving on to the cornerback position, we have 5 cornerbacks on the active roster. Pretty standard names. We all know Sauce Gardner, Brandon Stevens, Michael Carter. Those are going to be your starting 3. Quantez Stiggers as cornerback 4 and Azarie Thomas as cornerback 5 right now. Or you could say AZ Thomas is cornerback 4, whatever. I'm not going to nitpick the backups right now. In my opinion, if Sauce Gardner or Brandon Stevens were to get hurt, maybe Quantez jumps up just because of AZ Thomas's injury earlier on. So that might have set him back slightly. But I love the depth here. 5 quality defensive backs, 5 great cornerbacks, in my opinion, that I'm not worried if they have to come in and play time, right? Quantez will get you out of a game at corner, and he's going to give you a ton of special teams upside. So I love the cornerback room in its entirety. We did have one practice squad guy return, Jordan Clark, who is technically the backup nickel to Michael Carter II. At least that's how it was going in practice. And then Chris Boyd, the core special teamer, who is listed as a cornerback but is never really going to play cornerback. He's on the season-ending IR list, so we will not see Boyd this season, which is unfortunate because I felt like the coaching staff really had a role for him, similar to how Justin Hardy was for the Jets a couple years ago. So Chris Boyd to the IR season-ending and Jordan Clark to the practice squad, 5 corners on the active roster. Before I do the safety position, I want to shout out our boy Tommy, OG Jets fan, 1985. He gifted 1 DT membership. That membership went to Coach Brian Glick. So shout out to you, Coach Glick, for becoming an A1 since day one. OG Jets fan, I certainly appreciate that. Thank you so much. Final position on defense, safeties. Again, no real surprises here. I was 100% accurate with my prediction. Cisco and Adams are your top 2 guys, your projected starters. Malachi Moore, the rookie from Alabama, he comes in after a phenomenal game against the Philadelphia Eagles where he had a great punt, a tackle on punt team. He had a great tackle for loss, a pass deflection, an interception. So a great game to end the preseason for Malachi Moore. And then you have Isaiah Oliver, who I think is not necessarily an X factor for this defensive secondary, but somebody that the coaches certainly think very high of. When Steve Wilks, the defensive coordinator, was asked specifically about Isaiah Oliver and his role for the team, Steve Wilks said you can keep him at safety, and if you need to roll with him at nickel, he will get you what you need at nickel as well. So the quote-unquote lack of depth behind Michael Carter II doesn't faze me a ton because I know Isaiah Oliver can step up into that role and be the 4th safety / second slot corner. Malachi Moore is also going to give you some pop as a potential backup to Michael Carter in the slot. I think Malachi Moore could be that perfect dime where you have 4 cornerbacks and you technically use Malachi Moore as your slot corner. I think you can get really versatile with your safety play here. So maybe Malachi Moore is somebody that they don't want to rush to the starting position over Tony Adams because his value is versatility. So Tony Adams and Malachi Moore and Andre Cisco being on the field all at the same time wouldn't surprise me a bit. We call that big nickel when you use 3 safeties, but Malachi Moore is so much of a safety / corner that like it's really dime if you have Malachi Moore in there in the slot. So as much as I want him to, jump Tony Adams for the starting role, I think his versatility as a backup certainly lends to the favor of the coaching staff right now. And then we get into the special teamers. These are obvious, right? Nick Folk. Oh, excuse me. Safety, one practice squad guy, Dean Clark, back on the practice squad. So 1 on the squad and 4 on the active roster at safety. Special teams, we get into kicker, obviously Nick Folk. That was a given ever since Westhoff came to camp for the Jets. They moved on from Caden Davis. They brought in Nick Folk. He went 6 for 6, and Mevis didn't really have a chance after that. Mevis does come back to the practice squad, though, so another player that I thought was going to make their way to Miami just due to, Jason Sanders being hurt for the first 4 games on IR. I thought they would give a look at Harrison Mevis. They do not. So he comes back to the practice squad. And then you have punter Austin McNamara and then longest tenured Jet Thomas Hennessy entering his 8th season as a New York Jet. So excited for Hennessy. I think he's one of the more stabilizing forces, and you never have to be concerned about Thomas Hennessy's spot. I feel like he's just that consistent driving force on special teams. So that is your current 53-man roster. 14 of the 17 spots on the practice squad are secured. Leander Vegan gives you that flexibility for the 17th practice squad spot. They currently have 14 out of 17 on the squad. And then you have 4 players, on season-ending injury list: Rashad Weaver, Byron Cowart, Chris Boyd, and Irv Charles, the linebacker the wide receiver, who was on PUP the entire training camp. Then you have Jamarcus Weston, the special teams / linebacker UDFA from Florida, who is on the designated to return IR list. So Jamarcus Weston is going to be back in 4 weeks for the Jets, and then they're going to do more roster gymnastics, right? They're either going to cut Marcelino McCrary-Ball or Cam Jones to make way for Jamarcus Weston. At least that's what I'm projecting right now. Somebody in the chat just said, Chad Miner, shout out to you, Chad, for this. Rosenblatt tweeted the full 16. Okay, if that's true, can somebody just type in the 2 names that I'm missing out of the 16 that I have 14. So technically we have 1 spot left if there's only 16 right now. But if anybody wants to drop in those 2 names to the practice squad, I'd greatly appreciate it. I'm not going to try to pull up another tab as I'm talking here. So if we have the full practice squad, that's great. We got to get to 17, though. It's not 16. So we probably still have one if Rosenblatt is reporting 16. But that is the 53, the practice squad for now, and then the injury list as it stands right now. So with that, I will open up to the chat. I started a couple questions as I was going, trying to multitask as best I could. Trying to play producer and host is not an easy job. I've definitely learned throughout the process, but you guys in the chat, you guys always keep it, fluid. You guys are always talking, whether you're talking about what I'm talking about or you're talking to each other. It's great anyway, and I'll find all the chats to pop up. Like this one from Alan, he says college teams have better wide receiver depth than the Jets. Sure, that's definitely possible. The identity of this team tells me they're just going to run the ball, right? 40 attempts against the Packers, 33 attempts against the Eagles, and 28 attempts against the Philadelphia Eagles. It tells you what they want to do, right? They're not going to pass the ball a lot. Aaron Rodgers was 2nd in the NFL in pass attempts last year. He was also like 16th in yards. So passing the ball a lot doesn't mean shit if it's not efficient and successful. So this team has told you they want to run the ball, and this honestly, it doesn't surprise me. Ohio State has some dogs on it. Alabama, there's always stacked teams that have good wide receivers in college, so I'm not worried about that specifically. But you're right, Alan. There are college teams that are better than the Jets at wide receiver right now. Boomtown says, "What's up, Dylan? What's up, terrorizers?" I don't think we can call the chat that. I feel like it's a little bit much to be terrorizers, right? I feel like that comes with a little bit of a negative connotation. So right now we'll be the A1 since day ones. Obviously, if you tuned into Jake's show, we could call you guys the Dilly Goats, and you guys can bring all your good takes. So I don't know if I like terrorizers though, Boomtown, but I appreciate you tuning in. Alan with another chat. Bills drafted the perfect tight end for the Jets in Jackson Hawes. Yeah, he was a 5th round pick, I think, right before the first Miami guy was taken off the board. So I was definitely an advocate of drafting Jackson Hawes. So I mean, it is what it is. I'm not gonna kill them for it. The way that the tight end room kind of worked out is okay to me too. But yeah, if you want to say, Jeremy Ruckert out and Jackson Hawes in, sure, that's fine too. Coach Glick, I appreciate you. DT, you're doing an amazing job. Thank you. I'm trying my best. This is definitely a learn on the fly type of thing, doing the YouTube stuff live. I feel like I'm much more confident in my pre-recorded stuff just because I can, script it a little bit more and, plan out my thoughts. But I love doing the chats. I love having you guys in here live, giving me your thoughts in real time. So I definitely appreciate it. And I will always take the kind words no matter what. So thank you for that. Alan, yeah, I said the safety room is solid. I mean, it's not great. I don't think it's bottom 5 in the sport. Look at the Dolphins. They have Minkah Fitzpatrick, but then they have Ifeatu Melifonwu and Ashton Davis, one of our castaways. Like, it's probably not bottom 5 in the sport. It's probably closer to like 20th in the league, honestly. Like, if you get Cisco from 22 or 23, it's probably higher than 20th even. So I think Andre Cisco is getting a bad rap, especially for that one play against the Giants. Let's see what else we got in the chat. I had a couple starred here. Andrew Yakos says, on defense, if JJ can bring his best, we will be fine. Yeah, I think Jermaine Johnson's health and production will go the furthest on the defensive line because he is going to be your every down edge rusher, right? He's going to set the edge in run defense. He's going to get after the pass rusher. He's super violent. AG had a ton of good words to say about him today. But my counter argument is that Jermaine Johnson is not going to be able to play 100% of the snaps. He's probably going to play closer to maybe 70 to 75% of the snaps if we're lucky and he's healthy. So you still need a guy in there to come in on rotation, right? I'm not going to feel good about Braden McGregor's hand in the dirt on 3rd and 8 opposite Will McDonald. I'm just not going to feel confident about it. So I do think they need to add one more proven veteran to the room. Grandizer says, Dylan Tereman just came here to tell you, play like a Jet. Jets, 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 Jets. Absolutely. I appreciate that, Grandizer. Play Like a Jet, another great podcast. That is Scott Mason's podcast, so everybody should check him out. But yes, I appreciate it, Grandizer. Thank you for tuning in. Alan again says, a 5th rounder, Braden Swinson, was cut by the Pats and is now on the practice squad. The Jets could have done the same with Barron. Yeah, that's definitely, again, true. But who are you swapping with the moves that they've made? Not saying somebody else off the team right now. Who are you swapping Barron for right now that they can't go get a free agent and do the same thing with Barron in a couple of days? So I'm not entirely going to be, pissed about the roster management. I feel like they're handling it to the best of their degree, to the best of their abilities. But you add an edge rusher and Tyler Barron is probably no longer on the active roster. Coach Glick says, DT, why can't I find your show on Spotify? So I'm in the process of trying to not decide if I want to put it on audio only. I definitely want to get there eventually to an audio only platform like Spotify or Apple Podcasts or whatever, and be more of a well-rounded podcast instead of just a video only. I'm so new with everything yet that I don't want to jump into all these different areas, right? I don't want to spread myself too thin, trying to do too much too quickly, trying to slow build this approach. And we will definitely be audio only sooner rather than later though. But since it's my first season, a lot of this stuff is going to be, trial and error. I'm going to try certain topics or certain ideas for videos, and if they don't stick well, then it is what it is. So audio only is definitely in the future of this podcast for sure. Another question here from Grandizer. Dylan, your thoughts on the Jets not keeping one of their UDFAs? Were you shocked or no? A little bit. I guess I would say I'm a little bit shocked. Although the only real UDFAs that I had making this team were Jamal Pritchett and Brandon Smith. However, I said on my 53-man roster prediction that if Allen Lazard or Xavier Gipson were healthy, that those guys are probably cut and brought back to the practice squad anyway. So I projected Lazard and Gipson to start on the injury list. They did not. So the relative move is Pritchett and Smith not on the active roster, but you're able to get both of them back on the practice squad. So if you ask me, I think it's just really smart roster management. You keep the, steadying force of a veteran with experience on the active roster, but you can always pivot and bring up the guy with upside if the veteran isn't working. In both cases, Lazard, if he's dropping the ball a lot, Gipson, if he can't return the ball or if he's just fair catching everything, then yeah, you get the chance to call up Smith or Skinner for Lazard, and then you get to call up Pritchett to replace Gipson if it doesn't work. So I'll push back and say that I was a little surprised they didn't keep UDFAs, but once we found out the health of their veterans, it felt a little bit more likely that these guys were going to go back to the practice squad. David D says the downside of the pre-53 IR designated to return is it counts as one of the 8 maximum IR designated to returns for the regular season. Yes, you are limited with how many IR spots you can, designate to return. So I think that's, Byron Cowart, right? He's kind of a victim of that, right? I thought he would have been a 4-game IR. Unfortunately, he's a full season IR. And I don't know if his injury is actually going to keep him out a full season. So there's a good chance that, Byron Cowart is poached. He can go back. He can go on somebody else's roster. I just don't think he can play for the Jets based on the injury designation they gave him. I might be a little bit wrong on the details of that, but I do think Byron Cowart can be signed by another team if they wanted. Shout out, hold on, EF in the chat, a new member of the A1 since day one community. Thank you, EF. I greatly appreciate it. This is, I think, number 7 or number 8 of our membership. So we're definitely, we're getting there. I appreciate it. Thank you so much, EF, for joining. You look like a new face in the chat. I don't think I've ever seen you chat before. So I appreciate you tuning in and becoming a member of the A1 since day one community. Alan says Cam Jones is here until Weston returns. Yeah, I talked about that a little bit. Weston is going to replace Jones or McCrary Ball, depending on how either of them are doing over the first month of the season. Alan says, I can't believe Watts is the only edge on the practice squad, and he sucks. Again, like where was the flop that they were making to get the better edge guy? If it's somebody that another team cut, don't you think that they would prefer a guy that they saw in-house for the last couple months in McGregor? I'm not going to nitpick over edge 4 unless it's, them passing up a veteran for a guy who's completely new to the game. Larry in the chat, I appreciate you, man. Thanks for tuning in. Chris B, our most optimistic fan in the chat, shout out to you. He says, Dylan Tereman, legend, GOAT, phenom, legendary, generational, blue chip talent. Wow, holy crap. This is great. I appreciate that, Chris. NY Jets YouTube content creator, person, and NY Jets fan representing our team and fan base. You know it, Chris. Thank you so much for your support and your viewership. He asks, Cleveland Farrell at edge, possibly for our Jets or someone else. I don't know, man. Cleveland Farrell, he was a high pick. I don't know what he showed in his time with the Raiders and a couple other spots in the league. I'm not entirely in love. Is he an upgrade over Michael Clemens? You can argue it. I would certainly argue that it could be. So I'm not gonna, kill him if they make that move. But I don't know if he's the guy I would invoke. I would go for more of a proven guy who's like closer to the Harrison Phillips of edges than anything else. Tommy in the chat says, hit the like button. It's free and DT is the man. Yes, absolutely. Get those likes up. I appreciate it. I have 46 in the room on YouTube right now, 101 total between YouTube and Twitter. So definitely hit that like button. Consider subscribing. Become a member of the A1 since day one community, where you will get exclusive film breakdowns and videos of that nature when we get into the regular season. So I guess I can tease it now. You're going to get much of Justin Fields in those film reviews, right? If Justin Fields throws 20 passes against the Steelers, that film review is probably going to have 15 of those passes, right? I'll find some of the best throws and really break it down for you guys. Whereas the free version of those film reviews, it might be about 8 or so pass plays from Justin Fields. So that's just a bit of a glimpse of what the difference is going to be between memberships and non-memberships when it comes to the film breakdowns specifically. Dino, shout out to you in the chat, my man. He says, DT, what's up? Busy day for you. Yeah, I was going to go live last night when the 53 was actually released, but I gave myself a hard deadline of 7:30, whereas if the roster wasn't released by 7:30, I wasn't going to go live, because I have this issue, and it's not, I don't even know if it's an issue, but every time I do a live show, I get so amped up after I come like off the live stream that I'm up for like 4 hours afterwards. So I don't end up going to sleep until like midnight, even though I got off the live stream at like 8:30, 9 o'clock. Like I just get so amped up and I want to just keep going. So I definitely, I try to plan everything out the right way. If the 53-man roster was available at 6:30, 7 o'clock, I would have went live right after Jake, like I'm doing today. But instead we double up and you get a double dose of DT on your hump day Wednesday. And I also put out a pre-recorded video earlier on the chat breaking down some of the waiver claims the Jets made. So definitely a healthy dose of DT today on your YouTube feeds. But I appreciate you, Dino, tuning in. JD in the chat says, how much do you think JD Clowney would cost? Excuse me. That's a tough one, right? He's a independent contractor. He's a mercenary. I think if he were to come to the Jets, you're probably looking at, I don't know, 8 to 12 million. That's just a complete guess. I think Judon signed for a little bit less than that. So I would say maybe a little bit more than what Judon got from the Miami Dolphins to bring in Clowney. To Alan's point, does he want to come to a team that's probably going to see 10 or more losses? I'm not sure. Are we at the point of Jadeveon Clowney's career where he cares about wins? I don't think Jadeveon Clowney ever cared about wins, to be honest. I think Jadeveon Clowney always cared about the paycheck over the ring. That's just my opinion on what I've seen throughout his career. So I think if the offer is right for the Jets, then Jadeveon Clowney is probably going to come to the Jets. We got a little bit of Micah Parsons trade talk in the chat here. I think it's so funny that Packers fans are getting like basically blue balled by like Kay Adams and their former fullback John Kuhn and Ricky Scoops the dog on Twitter. Like everybody's saying the Packers are going to trade for Micah Parsons. I don't think so. The Packers do their due diligence on every single player that becomes available. Gutekunst, their general manager, even explained that today. He's like, if a quality player becomes available, we are going to ask. We are going to inquire, which is what good teams should do. So as much as I think they probably have an offer extended to Dallas, I don't think Jerry Jones is in any position to move off Micah Parsons right now. Okay. Tommy says, is there a call-in DT? So until the regular season starts, it's probably not going to be a call-in show. I think the most I want to do at first, again, I'm not trying to jump too much into too many different areas with the live streams and become more of what I anticipated it being, for better or worse. I want to take it as a slow approach. So my initial thought was I'm going to do call-ins on my live recap shows, and I'll have probably maybe 2 or 3 call-ins, and give me their thoughts about the game. So I don't think it's going to be a regular every time I'm live. I'm going to have the opportunity to call in, but we will definitely get to the call in portion of this channel. Absolutely. So stay tuned for that, Tommy. Thank you for the question. Larry Romano, the Packers are slackers. I mean, I don't know about that. They're a perennial playoff team or a playoff contender, so I wouldn't say they're slacking. They definitely slacked in week 1 of the preseason against the Jets, but I wouldn't call them slackers. I think they're a very good team still, and they're a very well-coached team. Oh, wow. Genergy. Whoa, $20 super chat. Thank you so much, Genergy. This is awesome. Like AG said, you can never get burned out when you are doing something you love. Here's to 1K subs. DT, let's effing go. Thank you so much, Energy. That's awesome. That was my favorite quote of the entire presser today by AG. That gets me fired up, right? If your coach loves coming to work every day, loves the team that he's coaching, this is different, right? This isn't just like having a good coach on your team. This is like having an extension of your team through AG. And I know he talked about your head coach being an extension of your quarterback, being an extension of your head coach. I want my head coach to be an extension of this organization. And I think Aaron Glenn does a great job of encapsulating what it's like to be a New York Jet. And every time he talks about his like fandom of this team, or like his pride when it comes to this team, the Jets fans chanting at practice and it hitting him and him getting emotional with the team, that's what fires me up the most, until we get to see the X's and O's come to fruition. So Genergy, thank you so much. I appreciate that greatly. And we got to get you a membership, Genergy. We're going to find you one. If I have to gift it myself, we will get you a membership on this channel, Genergy, because you are certainly an A1 since day one. Thank you so much. You are awesome. Oh, let's be nice, Alan. I'm sure Genergy is well capable of splitting the check on a date. David D., our resident Lions fan, says, I detest the Packers, but respect their football operation. Right? It's hard. When the whole Aaron Rodgers thing was going on with the Jets, I don't know, man. It was hard for me to hate Packers fans the way like Twitter wanted me to hate Packers fans. I just couldn't do it. I've grown up watching the Packers with my best friend of 20 years, ever since we watched the 2006 NFL draft in his treehouse, right? Like we've watched the Jets and the Packers together for so long that I can't hate on the Packers. And I understand there was some bad blood there during the Rodgers stuff, but I don't know. I can't hate the Packers. They're a very well-run organization. Judon got $6 million. Yeah. So I would say probably like 8 to 10 for Jadeveon Clowney. Absolutely seems fair. Rich says, I don't have the best memory, but when's the last time the Packers really sucked? Maybe before, like in the transition years between Favre and Rodgers, but before that, you're probably talking about the 90s. So I'm not saying they're a spoiled fan base, but my buddy Kevin knows that he's seen some very quality football, and I don't think he wants to trade places with me as a Jets fan. Alan, I never thought I would see the day that free safety gets $82 million guaranteed. Prices go up, man. That's really what it comes down to. I feel like as these TV deals roll in, all these, mega deals for the NFL come in, they just have more revenue to play with. They have like throwaway money essentially. And if you're going to pay the best free safety in the league, 25 mil per, that's fine. I mean, would you rather have a middling corner? Like JC Horn to me, is JC Horn worth the same amount of dollars annual average value as Kyle Hamilton? No, absolutely not. I think JC Horn is a good player. I would much rather have Kyle Hamilton at the same price. So everything's going up in the world, Alan. Inflation, even in the NFL. Let's see what else we got. Dino, no, I did not have. My buddy Kevin had a TV in his treehouse. Yeah, it was like attached to his barn, and his dad ran some electrical so we can have a little 9-inch TV up there. And we would we'd be playing catch in the backyard during the entire draft, and you hear your team up on the clock and you run up in the treehouse and you go watch your pick, and then you come back down and you have a catch and you keep throwing the football around. That was the 2006 draft. So that's what the Nick and Brick draft. So at the time, my, not 10, 11-year-old brain was like, oh, offensive linemen, how boring, not realizing that they would be two cornerstones of the Jets offensive line for years to come. But yeah, my buddy Kevin did have a TV in the treehouse. Shout out to Kevin if you're in the chat here. Let's see what else we got. A lot of Packers talk. I guess I initiated the Packers talk, so I accept it. Yeah, the Packers have been very good for pretty much my entire life. So let's see what else we got. We're almost at the hour mark. I'm probably not going to stay on terribly long tonight. I want to, like I said, it's hard for me to like wind down after these shows. So I can't go like a full 2 minutes or 2 hours, after going 2 hours with Jake. So I appreciate everybody tuning in, and we'll get through the last couple of these chats and then probably get out of here. If any other news breaks, I'll probably do a pre-recorded, coming out the rest of the week. I had plans this weekend to go visit my brother for my nephew's birthday, but ended up having to work this upcoming Saturday, so that is no longer the case. So I will be around for any news that breaks over the weekend. Tommy says, wide receiver, ? I don't know if you're addressing me as DT or if you're saying like defensive tackle or wide receiver. I just don't see it. I think it's like a 10% chance that the Jets actually go out and get somebody who is going to give you more than what Josh Reynolds is already going to give you on the team. So I think that's kind of what you're asking here. AG's burner, any news on the wide receiver 2 market and the Jets? I don't see it. I feel like they really like Josh Reynolds. They love Arian Smith, and look, I'm not ready to say Arian Smith is going to be some Pro Bowl, All-Pro, Hall of Fame caliber player, but I don't think Arian Smith is as bad as a lot of Jets fans think. His drop rate was bad in college. That does not mean he has bad hands. They're not a correlation, right? Carson Beck, not a perfect thrower of the football. That's why he's no longer at Georgia and he's at Miami. So there's a lot of things that go into it. So high drop rate to me doesn't say bad hands. But I just don't see it, right? Maybe there's a name out there that hasn't become public knowledge of somebody that's available. But do I see a team like the Jets currently who are looking at a 6 to 8 win season trying to trade a top 125 pick, so a top 4 round draft pick, to then have to pay a wide receiver $20+ million a season? Unfortunately, I just don't see it. Do I want it to happen? Yes. I want the Jets wide receiver group to look like the Eagles or the Cincinnati Bengals. I want that. I absolutely do. I just don't think that that's what the offense is going to entail. So my personal want for this team and what I actually predict or like, and I take my fan hat off and I put my analyst hat on, and the wide receiver 2 conversation kind of goes away for me. But as a fan, absolutely, I want it. And that's a good point, Genergy. Muji does move in silence. So there could be a very welcomed surprise or a pleasant surprise with the wide receiver market. And I feel like it's too hard to predict right now based on the names available and what you have to give up in both draft assets and cap dollars and cents to make it work. But Muji, please move in silence and get us a wide receiver 2. Alan, you're on crack for that last comment, brother. I wanted both of them in the draft. I wanted Kyle Hamilton at 10 over Garrett Wilson, but in no world do I want Kyle Hamilton over Sauce Gardner. You're talking about an elite corner at a premium position in the NFL compared to yes, he's a versatile, but he's a more free safety than a strong safety or box safety. So I'm going to have to hard disagree on that one. Tommy says, yo, Rich, tell all the fans of DT, smash the like button. Absolutely. Smash the like button. Smash the like button. Smash the subscribe button. We're about 140, maybe 150 subscribers away from 1,000. So we're definitely getting there. And we're only a couple hundred watch hours away from that 4,000 threshold. So the YouTube ads will be coming shortly on the channel, but they're much appreciated. I can't wait to get to that threshold. Okay, Alan, Kyle Hamilton changes games, but Sauce doesn't. Asinine, dude. Sauce Gardner had like 20 plus games in his career where he allowed less than 40 yards receiving. Like, how is that not game changing? You go say, hey, go shut down this half of the field or go shut down this number one wide receiver, and he's going to freaking do it. Asinine to me. Sauce is the biggest game changer out there. Him and Pat Surtain. David, yeah, you're 100% right. Dude, this is the team, right? This is what good teams do. They love just sitting back and taking value that comes to them. And Hamilton running a slow 40 definitely, led to his draft stock falling in the first round. I wanted him as a top 10 pick. I said, you go get Sauce at 4, you go get Kyle Hamilton at 10, you get 2 ridiculous defensive backs who were created in a lab, and nobody's ever going to throw a pass on you guys ever again. So I was a big fan of Kyle Hamilton, but not enough to say I want or he changes the game more than Sauce. Definitely not. Yeti says, I think if we all take a real hard look at the roster, opinions will differ. Sure, of course. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. The coaching staff certainly sees a different vision for this roster than I do. And I probably see a different vision for this roster than you do, Yeti. And everybody sees a different vision for this roster than Alan does. But yeah, it's beauty is in the eye of the beholder with the roster. You can choose to take a more optimistic approach, which I'm doing right now until we have film of the regular season, right? I'm going to take the optimistic approach and believe in the coaching staff a little bit more. Now, if we get to game 3 or 4 and I'm going to be at the Steelers game in person, I'm going to be at the Tampa game in person. And if I don't like what I see after those 3 weeks, I'll call it as I see it. But right now, you got to be at least a little bit optimistic that these coaches know what the hell they're doing. All right. Any more in the chat here? Arian Smith, wide receiver 4. That's completely fine, right? That's where he was when he was drafted. So if he's able to give you anything more than that, that's fine. But Garrett Wilson, Josh Reynolds, Allen Lazard, I think that's fair to say that they're ahead of Arian Smith. I don't think it's going to be that way midseason, and I don't think it's going to be that way by the end of the season. Oh, Yeti, you were trolling me with that one. Damn, I fell right into it. That was 100% BS. But it's true, man. I honestly thought you were right. I mean, it's just if we all look at the roster, I mean, just think of it in the real world perspective. We all look at a certain thing and we realize that, we have different opinions on a lot of things. So beauty is in the eye of the beholder with a lot of things. All right, let's see. AG's Burner says Sauce should be in the 3 to 5 interception range per year with how talented he is. Yeah, I think so too. And with the fact of him shadowing more, it's going to lend to more opportunities to get interceptions. When you do the whole half field thing, right? DJ Reed is on one side, Sauce Gardner's on the other. Smart quarterbacks and smart offensive coordinators are just going to put their best receiver over DJ Reed and say, let DJ Reed beat us at 5'9". And a lot of times DJ Reed made him look stupid. They weren't attacking Sauce to the degree where the interceptions are a huge thing. And also, can we talk about 2010 Darrelle Revis and how many interceptions he had on that team that made it to the AFC Championship game? Because it was 0 interceptions for Darrelle Revis that year. So I'm not worried about that. Sauce traveling with number 1 receivers. Like I mentioned it with Metcalf. He's still going to get targeted by Aaron Rodgers, even if Sauce is over top of him. So Sauce is going to have the opportunity to get more picks if he's traveling with the number 1s. Joe Burrow is still going to throw to Jamar Chase, even if Sauce is on him. So I think it would definitely lend to Sauce having more picks. Yeah, Revis had like 30 pass deflections. No, I don't think it was that many. It might have been like closer to 20, but Sauce had, I think, 15 plus in his rookie year or his second year in the league. So like it's not out of the realm of possibility that the ball production for Sauce Gardner goes up. It was exactly 30 AG. Damn. Okay. Well, that's why he's in the Hall of Fame. But Sauce is doing ungodly like things too in his first 2 years. First receiver or first corner ever to be an all-pro first team in his first 2 seasons in the league. So yeah, that's 2009 AG. That's not the year he had 0 picks. Where's the year that he had 0 picks? That's the one that I'm concerned about. All right. I think I had one more question in here that I wanted to get to. I appreciate everybody tuning in. Almost 120 of you guys in the room. We have 51 watching on YouTube and just over 65 on Twitter. So, yeah, there you go, AG. He had 0 picks and 10 pass deflections. Is he a bum? No. They just didn't throw to him. That's what happens when you're a goddamn good cornerback. They don't throw to you. So, that's what Sauce is experiencing. And after his rookie year, they still tried him. And he was even better his second year in the league. So, and also this, yeah, I was going to say this is Revis's year 2 in 2009. So he was in his 3rd year in 2010 when he did that. So like he's right there. Sauce is right there with Revis right now. So I'm not worried about it at all. They're both game changers. Him and Kyle Hamilton. No, I know you're not trying me, AG. It's just I can't do the Sauce is bad thing. I just can't do it. I know you're not saying that specifically. I can't do it. There's no wiggle room with this roster. I also have very little faith in Fields in big spots. Yes, if the team is down 14 to 20 points, I'm not confident in their ability to make a comeback. I also think they're going to be in game neutral scripts where it's like a 7-point lead either way, whether it's a 7-point deficit or a 7-point lead for the Jets, and they're going to be able to run the ball consistently. They ran the ball probably 34 times on average. It was 40 against the Packers, 33 against the Giants, and 28 against the Eagles. Somebody can do the quick math, but that averages out to over 30 times a game. So we know what this team is going to be, guys. Like we know the identity of this team is run the ball as much as possible. 3 siblings, Jay, you're getting on my nerves. Sauce does not suck. I know you're trolling me now. Jay still calls him a mod. I think that's so silly, right? Like, if the guy wants to be called Sauce, just call him Sauce. Like, don't when he's bad call him a mod. Like you're, degrading him or something. I don't see it. 3 Sibs says I forgave him. You were actually mad at Sauce for a little bit. What's going on, 3 Sibs? All right, let's see what we got here. Any more questions last minute in the chat? AG, did people not see those back-to-back pass deflections in the preseason? Yeah, and then did they not see him come up in run defense in between those 2 pass deflections? So I'm with you, AG. I think Sauce is going to have closer to a career year than what we saw last year from him. And he even admitted his mentality was a little shot after Saleh got fired. So can you necessarily blame the players for giving up when organizationally it looked like the entire team gave up? It's hard to say, right? When there's so much dysfunction, it's not conducive for success. And I think we're starting to cleanse the palate a little bit at One Jets Drive. Let's see. David D. The Lions under Ben Johnson, Tanner Ingstrand, and company didn't throw to a wide receiver with Sauce in the vicinity more than once in the December 2022 game between the 2 teams. That's very good insight. I probably wouldn't have either when Sauce was on that ridiculous tear his rookie year. They probably were also, fielding Josh Reynolds at that point. You can probably fill me in more about 2022's skill positions on the Lions, but yeah, I wouldn't target Sauce a ton. I know Rodgers is going to try it because he thinks he knows Sauce's tendencies, but I think that's a mistake. All right, we'll end it on this one from AG's burner. AG will use the safeties much better than Saleh did. 100% agree. We already saw it. We saw Cisco on a blitz. We saw Tony Adams in practice getting a strip sack on Justin Fields. Malachi Moore is always around the line of scrimmage pre-snap. Like it's much different alignments from your standard one high shell. Corners have their butts to the sidelines. You know it's cover 3 with outside leverage pre-snap, right? We know that that's what that's going to look like. Then they had the 2 high shells where they rolled their defender down and they still got to their cover 1, cover 3 looks. And they sometimes did quarters with their 2 high shells, but they never did enough well-rounded safety usage, in my opinion. So getting the safety blitzes, safeties up close to the line of scrimmage, not just as like stack backers at the second line level of the defense. 100% agree. And I guess it's a cold take now, but I said that the Saleh era and Saleh regime was going to prioritize safeties much more than cornerbacks during their regime. They proved me wrong completely. They didn't, spend any assets on corner or safety where they spent premium assets at corner. So I do think it's going to be more well-balanced with AG, and we're going to see a more productive safety room, which is also why I'm not too terribly low on the room as a whole. All right, I see a stat in here I got to put up. Adirondack Fly Guy. Sauce has allowed a 36.7% completion percentage in the fourth quarter since he entered the league. That is a ridiculous stat. So 1 out of 3 times you'll be lucky to make a completion on Sauce Gardner, and most likely it's going to be for 8 yards, and he's going to get tackled right away. So I appreciate that insight, Adirondack. Ooh, Alan with some breaking news. YouTube TV and Fox with the short-term agreement. That's fine. It felt like eventually they were going to have to get something done, right? The Fox carrying the NFL games and, college noon, whatever the kickoff show is for Fox. I don't know what it is for college football, but they have a ton of good ton of good programs on Fox, and they had to make a deal. YouTube TV is not going to miss out on all that money on football season. All right. With that, I think I'm going to leave it here. We're at about an hour and 15. So I appreciate everybody tuning in. Thank you to everybody who sent in super chats or memberships. Big Country with your super chats. OG Jets fan Tommy with the gifted memberships. Genergy with the big $20 super chat. EF becoming a member of the A1 since day ones. I greatly appreciate you all for tuning in. David D was the first member to join today. So you guys are awesome. I really appreciate it. I'm not sure when I'll be back live, but any Jets news that comes out, I'll be back with a pre-recorded video on the feed. Maybe this weekend, depending on what news we get, I'll go live at least once more this weekend. I like the weekend crowd that we get, especially, whatever day Jake doesn't do. If he does a Saturday show, I usually have a good turnout on Sundays. Sunday night, I'm going to promote Nick Shine's show Sunday at 8 o'clock. I think we're starting. I think it's 8 or 8:30. We'll be on Nick Shine's show doing our wrap-up to training camp. I was on with him earlier in the training camp, and we talked about what we wanted to see. Now we're going to go and review those things and see if we actually saw those things in training camp. So really excited to join Nick Shine on Sunday night at 8 o'clock. So check us out there. I'll let you guys know with a YouTube post or a Twitter post, probably both, letting you know when I'm going to go live next. So I appreciate everybody tuning in. We got about 120 of you in the room between X and YouTube. Please smash that like button. Consider subscribing to the channel. We're roughly 150, 160 away from that 1,000 threshold, and that will be awesome. I'm trying to get there before Aaron Rodgers and the Pittsburgh Steelers come to town, so I appreciate it. All the A1s since day ones, thank you so much for your contributions, and until next time, let's go Jets.